goddamn people, like sometimes you watch things, right, that you just think, man, that really hits you, right? It kind of touches you, it connects with you. I mean, there's inspirational shit, and then there's 14 peaks. Nothing is impossible. So this film, this film is crazy. It's insane, right? It's the fearless Nepali mountaineer Nimsdai Purja embarks on a seemingly impossible quest to summit all 14 of the world's 18,000-meter peaks in 7 months. That's the thing, and you just be like, no, of course not. Listen, I've watched Free Solo and Dawn Wall, and when you hear the stories in those two films, and you see what it took to do those feats, right? You just look at this and be like this, what? What? It just sounds insane, you know? It's directed by Torquil Jones, who wrote the film with Gabriel Clark. It's produced by John McKenna, Barry Smith, Drew Masters, Catherine Quantashig, Mark Webber, and Nimrod Punjab. Edited by Ian Gresh. Music is from Nanariti Desi. And it's starring, well, Nimrod Purjari, right? Who goes by Nimsdai, right? That's his nickname. His climbing team, which consisted of, well, just a few of them anyway. We had Ming Ma Gabu, then there's Jel Jen, Lakpa Dendi, and Gesman Tamagang. Right, so we also had his wife, Suki Purja, and Reinhold Mesner, who is a very famous climber, people. Very famous climber. And there is a reason why he's very friggin' famous. Now, I think one of the crazy things about this, right? So before this film, Tenzing Norgay was probably the most famous Nepali mountaineer that anyone knew. And even his name, not a lot of people know it, right? And the big thing about Tenzing was he was with Edmund Hillary when they were the first two people to scale Mount Everest in 1953. Right now, everyone knows Edmund Hillary. Not many people know Tenzing Norgay, right? Which is insane because he helped Hillary climb that mountain, as he was a Sherpa. And here's the crazy thing. So when you hear about people climbing mountains, you always hear about the Sherpas, right? And there was, it was in one thing I remember watching. I don't know if it was mentioned maybe in Free Solo, or I don't think it was mentioned in Dawn Wall. It might have been mentioned in Dawn Wall, but I know I've watched it somewhere, and they're talking about the Sherpas and the fact that they keep these mountains going, right? They manage Mount Everest for one, but the Sherpas are the people that scale the mountains, that put the guide ropes up, so people can go do these. When you see people do Kilimanjaro, and there's always these charity events to climb mountains and all of this, right? It's always a team of Sherpas that help people do these things, but it's just Sherpa. There's no names, right? We don't know the Sherpas' names. They're never mentioned in that context. You know what I mean? It was just, the Sherpas were there to help. And every year, Sherpas die doing these things, but don't get a mention. If a famous enough mountaineer was to die, they'll get a mention. Sherpas don't, right? Which is just, it's kind of foul. And you see, I don't even why I put kinder in front. It's straight up foul. You know what I mean? And at the start of the film, right, we hear Nimsdai say, right, part of the reason for doing this is to inspire people, right? To inspire people, to show that, Nepali people are just as great as European, American, other international climbers. And I'm not gonna lie, right? You hear that at the beginning of the film, and you kind of think it's hyperbole. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, you're doing it to inspire people. Okay. You know what I mean? It'd be like, just say you wanted to do it. That's it. You wanted to climb mountains, you climbed a mountain. That's what I thought at the start, right? Then you watch this thing and you're like, what? Like, what the fuck is happening? It's insane. So the idea is, as I said, look, to climb these mountains, and they were chosen because they are the 14 highest summits in the world, being over 8,000 meters, which, I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? That's ridiculous. I climbed up Grosse Point in Vancouver, and that was some crazy shit. You know what I mean? I tripped. I bet. You know what I mean? It was insane. That was crazy. Um. So yeah, I can't imagine like doing these. And I thought about doing Kilimanjaro, right? And it's like, yeah, you know what? I think I might do that shit. Then I was just a bit like, yeah, you know what? All these people do it. I don't really want to. And then there's the other remembering I can hardly see. So it's just a bit like, yeah, that's kind of stupid. It might be a stupid. I trip up walking in a straight line on flat ground. So I'm just like, yeah, to climb up, no, I probably won't do that. But this motherfucker decided to do 14. 14. Only 40 climbers have ever achieved this, right? 40. The first being Reinhold Messner, right? Who did it from 1970 to 1986. It took him 16 years. 16 years to do it, but he did it. And the problem is, once you do something like that, then everyone's like, I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat him. And that's what happened. That's what happened a year later. So in 1987, Jesse Kakazaka did it. in 7 years, 14 months, right? And then in 2013, that record was beaten by Kim Chang Ho, right? Who did it 7 years, 10 months, and 8 days, right? It's just like, oh man. So just beat Jesse, just beat, but yeah, that's enough, right? That's enough to get in those books. So Nimsdai, his idea was to do it in 7 months, right? Because 7 months that beats Kim's record, you know, and he decided because everyone was like, "This is impossible. It's an impossible thing to do, right?" We hear someone at the beginning of the piece say, normally, just to do one of these mountains, right? A normal person is going to take 2 months, right? There's going to be all this planning and 2 months to climb the mountain itself. Not a day. He was climbing mountains in a day. He was like, no one will do that. Like, what are you doing? It's crazy, right? It is straight crazy, people. And yeah, but that was the task. That was a task at hand. And you just be like, boy, this it's impressive as hell. It's impressive as hell. So he started with Anna Puma, 8,091 meters. He did that on the 23rd of April 2019. Then it's Dalgary, Kanchenjunga, right? Then it's Mount Everest. Then it's La Huiste. Then he did Makalu, right? And he did those 3 mountains in, I think, 2 days, which is insane. Then it's Nanga Parbat, Gesherbrum 1, Gesherbrum 2. Yeah, they probably couldn't think of another name. K2, which I think is the tallest out of all, 8,611 meters. Broad Peak, Chu Oyu, Manslul, and it ended with Shishpangma, which, oh man, that was just a crazy story in itself. You know what I mean? Just doing that one, right? So yeah, he was able to do these mountains just in just a crazy amount of time. You know what I mean? Like he started in April the 23rd was when the first mountain was scaled, and he then finished in October, right? Did it all in 2019, which is insane. So yeah, started on the 23rd of April and then finished in Nepal, right? And finished on the 29th of October in China. So this mountain range, it was like these mountains were in Nepal, Pakistan, and that last mountain was in China. And here's the thing, right? So being 8,000 meters high, they call it the death zone. Sound enticing? You know what I mean? It's just like, just the thought of climbing mountains 8,000 meters high. That's one thing. You'd be like, hey, it's like, oh, I feel I can do it. And then you'd be like, wait, they call it the death zone? What? They call it the death zone because of the altitude, right? It's you are breathing I think it's they said like a third of the amount of oxygen that humans need to survive. That's the thing, right? So 8,000 meters high, they call it the death zone, and then you find out you're breathing a third of your required amount of oxygen, which is just like, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And this is it. So you hear all of this, and then you're like, yeah, maybe that stuff at the beginning isn't hyperbole, right? But we also, with this, we get an insight into Nimsdai himself. And you realize this dude was just straight up gangster. So his dad was a Gurkha, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. He became a Gurkha. And if you don't know, the Gurkhas are an elite military force who helped out the UK, helped out England in the war, right? They're legendary, right? The Gurkhas. Say Gurkha, and you like, people know what the fuck Gurkhas are, right? Was a Gurkha, and then he's just like, you know what? This ain't enough. So he applied and was the first Nepali to become a special forces operative for the UK, which just getting into that's insane. Like he was the first man, the first. And here's the thing: you think, right, that's crazy enough, and we see some footage of him jumping out planes and just other stuff. We then find out that he nearly died. There's a point where he nearly died doing this. So you're just like, any normal person would think, I think I've used up my luck, right? Was a Gurkha for, I think it was like 8 years, special forces for 6 years. You're thinking, might have done all my luck in this period of time. But no, he decided to start climbing. And the crazy thing as well, right? So I mentioned Free Solo and Dawn Wall. Well, when you watch those documentaries, it's Alec Hammond, and I forget the dude from Dawn Wall, but they're talking, right? And they're like, yeah, we started climbing as kids. You know, we picked it up at a very young age and all this. Nimsdai started climbing in 2012. That was the first time on a mountain. You know what I mean? And then he did this in 2019. 7 years later. That is straight up bananas. Now, obviously, being a Gurkha, right, being special forces, you do crazy stuff. You do crazy stuff. And you also kind of feel that living in Nepal, right, being born there, that does something to you. You know what I mean? Because it's just living at that altitude, right? And it showed because we see him at the altitude center in London, where he's just doing these tests, which other people, they're like, yeah, we've had elite triathletes, I mean, ultra marathon runners, all them crazy people. Think Cameron Haynes, David Goggins, the likes of that. Now, I don't know if they've tried these tests, but I'm just saying, imagine that type of person, right? But the altitude center, they're saying that these people struggle to do that test. Struggle. So we see what kind of person Nimsdai is. Like if the Gurkha, the special forces ain't enough, and then you see this and you're like, yo, what? And so we get to see this challenge and the way they went about it, right? Because as I said, look, most climbers they're using ropes, guidelines, and all of that have been set up before them. They were putting in their own lines. They were putting in their own lines, so they're carrying huge backpacks just full of it, and they're using oxygen at a point on the mountains, which they were getting dogged for. This is insane. They're getting dogged for using oxygen for some of it. Didn't use it for all of it. Some of it they use oxygen. And the thing is, right, when you look at this, it's like most climbers, 2 months to do one of these mountains, they were doing mountains in a day, sometimes less than a day. So obviously you're gonna have to use to be able to do it at that pace. There's no we're gonna set up camp and we're gonna sleep and no, they're just boom, kicking it, kicking it. So you see all of this, and you're just in awe. You're in awe of everything that happened, right? It was just to get the thing started in the first place. We see what went into that, and it's crazy. It's straight crazy. But it's this attitude, this never say die, this hey, we're gonna do this, man. And the way he inspired his team was crazy, right? But the other great thing was he had a team of all Nepali climbers, right? A few Sherpas, and he gave all of them recognition, right? But it was like to show that hey, Nepali climbers are just as good as any other climbers in the world, man. And they got, man, it's when they got to K2, all these people were giving up. All these people were giving up because he'd have people, different groups of people meet him on each mountain to help with the climb and all of this. And this group was on K2, and as I said, look, they were giving up, but we see him inspire these people. It was just incredible to watch. Right? There was one woman, and she was saying, right, you know, people told me it's going to be 50-50 if you make it or die if you go with him. And I've got 2 kids, and I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to take this risk. And it's just like, I remember hearing that and just thinking, yo, kid, just climbing in general, you are taking a risk. So to be like, I've got 2 kids and blah, 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 you're climbing. It's the amount of climbers that die each year. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like these mountains, there's what do you call it? Slides, ice slides. Oh man, there's an actual word for it. Avalanche. There's avalanches and all of them. So yeah, you're putting your life just on a general basis. But you know what I mean? I would climb with Nimsdai because I would believe I would believe that we were doing this shit. Right? And the other incredible thing about this, so we're watching this documentary and we're seeing him do these things, but then there's more because his mum is ill. His mum is ill, like seriously ill. And you're just thinking to be able to do these mountains in this short a period of time, you need maximum focus. So imagine doing it knowing someone you love with all your heart is ill and could die. That's insane. Because you're thinking that must be fucking with your focus, right? But he still did it. Still did it. And as I said, I mentioned at the start, right? We see his wife a lot, talking and everything like that. And I've got to say, right, just the feat of climbing this, doing this, was inspirational. But then to see the belief his wife had in him, right? To see that, god damn, god damn. Like you watch, there's all these films and things, right? Which are showing relationships, and it always feels just this fakeness. But seeing these two, right, seeing this support system, this love, it's just like, I want that. You know what I mean? It just makes you feel like, fuck. Oh man, someone that just is ride or die for you, someone that will support you like that. Fuck, man, I want that. Right? That's what you're kind of imagining. It's crazy. But yeah, this whole story is insane because as well as climbing these mountains, you know, they filmed it, right? They filmed over 100 hours of footage, which does explain a lot, right? Because I'm thinking, how the fuck is the director getting all of this? You know what I mean? You're just like, how is this happening? But no, they filmed a lot of it, and then the director, Torquil Jones, he captured all the other footage we see and did the interviews and all of this kind of stuff. There's a nice little animation in here as well. It's a very well put together documentary. And there's this one moment on Everest where he's like, "Oh yeah, so and you see the queues, right? I don't know why people do Everest because it just looks so unappealing, right? Because it's not like you're climbing at your own. There's just literally people are nose to the head, back of the head, nose to back of the head, waiting to get up this mountain and climbing at this slow pace with all these other people. And then once you get to the top, it's a queue to take a photo, and then it's this whole thing to try and get down the mountain. And he takes this photo of this queue, and I was like, I remember that goddamn photo. Right? We spoke about it on Echoes from the Void about how insane this was. All these people going up the mountain. And the fact, yeah, and I think that's where I got the Sherpa information. Because I just remember at the time, right? All these people doing Everest, but the Sherpas get no recognition for it. And it's insane. But yeah, I remember seeing that, but was never credited to him in the footage that I saw of that. And that was a big thing, right? Because he's like, if this was a European doing this challenge, so much of the press would cover it. And I've got to say, he's right, because one big thing about Dawn Wall and Free Solo was all the press covering it. All the press covering it. So it's just like I can't believe people didn't give it the same recognition, because this is a crazier thing, right? And it's not to say what was done in those other two pieces wasn't death-defying, wasn't crazy, because it was. But when you compare these challenges, and when I say compare, I'm talking about when you look at the time and experience of climbing. Nimsdai, as I said, 7 years. Got on a mountain, first time, 2012. So for me, this, just even if you had just done one, right, or three of these, you'd be like, that's so impressive. But then to do 14, the 14 highest peaks in the world? Yo, that is insane. It is straight up insane. And here's the other thing about it, right? By doing all of this, he broke records, right? So obviously, fastest ascent of all 14 8,000 feet mountains, right? And remember, right? He wanted to do it in 7 years, in 7 months. Sorry. You know what he did it in? 6 months and 6 days. And to be honest, I kind of feel it would have probably been 6 months, right? If there wasn't the craziness that we see at the end of the film. All right, so but 6 months, 6 days. Just wonder, like, I don't know if anyone can beat that. That's insane. He also got fastest ascent of the 5 highest mountains, which he did in 70 days. Right? The previously it was 4 years. Right? 4 years. Which is, yeah, insane. He also did the fastest triple header of Everest, Labatt, and Makalu, 2 days and 30 minutes. That's what I mean. Less than a day to do Mount. Like those three, 2 days and 30 minutes. And it was his record that he broke, right? Which he set in 2017. So this is just remarkable. It is a remarkable feat, people. It really is. You're just flabbergasted by it all. By it all. And yeah, as I said, look, I take back what I thought. Because that, what we hear him say at the bit, it's not hyperbole. Because that was some inspiring shit. It was super inspiring. Because you just see him persevere. You see him persevere, and you just think to yourself, yeah, anything could be possible. Anything could be possible. And as I said as well, that relationship he has with his wife, if you don't want that, you are straight crazy, people. You are straight crazy. So if you have not watched it, I highly, highly recommend you go check out 14 Peaks. Nothing is impossible, because it's going to change your perspective on everything.